next session, which will begin with Florin Lubont, who will speak to us on empowering critical minds, metacognition, and logic-based therapy for deconstructing totalitarian narratives within students, communities of philosophical inquiry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'll try to share something here. Hopefully it will work because usually it did work. Do we have anything on the screen or not just yet?
Starting up. Looks like it's starting.
It's loading. I would like to give a brief introduction. He is a professor of philosophy and PhD supervisor in philosophy at the Department of History, Theology, and Philosophy of the West University of Timisoara. He holds a degree in philosophy and history from the University of Bucharest, a master's degree from the University of Oxford, and doctorates in philosophy from the universities of Wales in the UK.
Okay, thank you so much. I think now we can see something on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to be more simple than what the way Guy was, because I'm trying to go to the youngest minds who we are trying to work with and try to adapt LBT in combination with other approaches. And so far, I know there are very few articles written on the conjunction between P4C and LBT as approaches. It is a handful of them, but this is not much. This cannot be much, considering the amount of literature and studies done in various various fields. So I think there is a lot of work to be done in this respect, to introduce more vigorously and to various levels. Now I know that it's not the same to work with adolescents who are 13, 14, 15. It's not the same if we work with 5 or 6 or 7-year-olds. So this has to be carefully adapted, and that's why I have to admit that I started working reactively under the pressure of events, pressure of more or less recent events from the last couple of months of last year, and started working with students, undergraduate students. I had a large number of students in ethics classes, usually I think over 350 from mathematics and biology and physics, and my main group were the 50 students in history, group I could work with. So that is why what I'm sketching here is just work in progress, and it's based on feedback from them as much as we could put together in this and in this respect. So I'm just going to show a couple of slides here. So the idea was after this interaction and the feedbacks and gathering feedbacks and putting them together, try to divide and to actually design an intervention for schools, for pre-university schools, because we have a network of schools, and we do go and have have a regular philosophy with children workshops from very young kids, but we never went that as far as 4-year-olds like Matthew Lipman did, but usually starting 7 with the age of 7. And because there is a lot of confusion, a lot of now fear, there's a lot of uncertainty among parents, and children actually soak up what is happening, what they see that the parents watching in the news, and all these things. I thought that maybe I can show you a sketch of what I've done so far and consult with you for improving this, because obviously this will need improvement. Before all these events, we run a successful project in the city dedicated to eco-philosophy for children, which was based on some previous studies on children, let's say, climate change anxiety. So it was kind of tried and tested there with various kids, all from disadvantaged backgrounds, so from socially assisted kids centers. And there was the place where we first introduced the thinking moves, the metacognition instruments, using this list you see on the screen, the moves of the thought, the way they were trained, or they were encouraged to move their minds or to focus their minds to either to look ahead or to look back, or to make connections, divisions, explanations, formulations, grouping, and these are the simple thinking moves which have been practiced with children between the age of like 8 and 16. The disadvantage in these centers were that children were kind of many ages, and it was very difficult to work in smaller groups. So there was a bit of difficulty in adjusting to the age and cognitive development level, but we did our best. We tried to separate at least in 2 separate groups, children who were younger than 10, children who were over 10 or 11, and it proved to be quite effective. And then moving to the next phase, when I realized that there was a lot of confusion among students now once the university year started, and then we had political events and things happened. Then there was a lot of unrest among students. Students were out in the street, they were demonstrating, they were protesting, and I was trying to figure out, and invited them to figure out together, okay, what's going on? Let's see if we really understand what's happening, and if we really can judge what's happening. But so they were used mostly like let's say guinea pigs for this, to try to put together a strategy, long-term strategy. Like I said here, the school year in this country, in Romania, lasts for between 32 and 36 weeks, depending on what kind of high school there is or what kind of school there is. So between 32 and 36 weeks. But considering that there are some weeks when they have testing and examinations and other things, or they have a free week for other activities. So I consider that 30 weeks is the average length of school year, and that would be the 10 steps divided over 30 weeks, so 3 steps each week, in order to try to work with them some strategies to detect, deconstruct, and counter this kind of thinking, which is now flooding all the media channels and all the social media things, outlets to which they are heavily exposed, and try to use then. So I practice this with students in large numbers and try to adjust it in according to what I got from them in terms of feedback, in terms of replies and reactions. So the first step was to go a bit to the foundations, show them what was going, what is CPI about. CPI is the Community of Philosophical Inquiry, a model designed by Matthew Lipman and perfected by other people after him. I'm not going to go into details about that. I think after me, Arohi is going to present exactly something about these kind of groups. So it's just a group which bases its activity on philosophical reflection and inquiry. Then bringing them together with the logic-based therapy and metacognition. This would be the first 3 weeks, where the communities of philosophical inquiry idea would be introduced, and then the LBT structured approach to identify fallacious thinking, and also the metacognition techniques, rather showing them how they work with examples for tracking thought patterns. Of course, again, I cannot go into details here because there is some difference between age groups. So I just made it as simple as possible, and already started introducing some of the I think 26, 2 of the 26 thinking moves, which is looking back and questioning, in order to test how they work. And the first case study was this one, the speech of 2021, using from Trump's speech one sentence: "We will never give up, we will never concede," or actually three sentences. "It doesn't happen, but you don't concede when there is theft involved." This was subjected to logic-based therapy analysis, looking what kind of fallacy would this be. I mean, this could be also probably you can also apply another fallacy to this, but the tendency was to apply demanding perfection, insisting that elections must always be flawless without irregularities, and that they are entirely illegitimate. And the syllogism we came to was if an election is stolen, true patriots must resist. The election was stolen, so conclusion was that true patriots must resist. And of course, well, as we know, to storm the Capitol. So then the guiding virtue was metaphysical security, and then some exercises, a cognitive diary, students tracking personal emotional responses to persuasive rhetoric, and another one way up with an exercise of answering to this question: which arguments in the speech are backed by evidence, which are emotional appeals in that speech. The other step, second step, would be to understand psychology of extremism and totalitarian thinking, because there is a lot of appeal, emotional content, that discussing how extremist ideologies eliminate uncertainty. And there was a very fruitful discussion about uncertainty. I heard something said yesterday as well about that uncertainty. And what does the elimination of uncertainty lead to? Leads to dogmatic beliefs. And then we discussed a bit about the cognitive dissonance manipulation and this big lie theory. And the two metacognition thinking moves were the inference and zooming, for them to look at the logical consequences of what it means to have to express an extremist claim, and what else can be false if that it happens, and to zoom out here to look at the larger historical or political context. The history students who are 50, I had 50 students in these groups. They were very tempted to and pushing towards looking at the larger historical or political context. And the case study was also with suggestions, and what seemed to be very hot at the moment, or still hot after over 2 years, was the justification of the invasion 22. We are carrying out a special military operation to denazify Ukraine, and because there are political forces in this country which are supporting this, so this was even more a matter of engagement for students, and not all of them were on the same page. Some were opposing that this is wrong. So we looked into awfulizing or catastrophizing, and the meaning the exaggeration of framing Ukraine's resistance as existentially threatening. So exaggerating the events to catastrophic proportion, and the syllogism looked like this: Nazism is an existential threat to Russia. Ukraine resists Russian influence. Conclusion: Ukraine is Nazi and must be eradicated. So false, another false syllogism. The guiding virtue, courage, seemed to work satisfactorily in the discussions, helping to face challenges without exaggeration. Exercises here: a small group debate. The two of them you see on the slide. Can governments manufacture threats to justify war? And the test was, how could we verify, in this case, Putin's claim, what evidence is needed? So they started thinking about, okay, well, obviously there wasn't enough evidence for this, so let's look for more evidence for this. So slowly they were moving towards reflecting on how little actually they were offered as evidence. Second phase, to identify and deconstruct extremist narrative. This is very serious, because extremist narratives are now, there is so much freedom in the press that everything, people say everything. And a lot of this stuff is bombarded into students' heads, and a lot of that they don't know how to take or what to believe out of this. So there was a need of introduction to this, and also give a definition of gaslighting, which is convincing followers to reject their own perception of reality in favor of the leader's version. So what this gaslighting was, and with some examples from history, and how gaslighting works as a tool of control. What metacognition thinking moves were selected to work best was connection, relating to historical examples, propaganda, because there is a lot of that in recent history, and it's not very difficult to make that connection, and then to try to explain how gaslighting erodes independent thinking, because you have to surrender your thinking to the leader. You don't think anymore. And even that is sometimes done insidiously, so they don't really realize. Once thinking about it, some people actually realize that those thoughts weren't theirs, the ones they were uttering to the group. We know one of the canon conspiracy theory, global Satan worshipping pedophiles control the government, one of the ridiculous, crazy statements which was found on the internet. So the LBT analysis, damnation, yes, probably the most obvious one. Assigning total negative words to political opponents, to the opponents, reducing them to villains instead of engaging in critical debate. Syllogism could look like this. I'm not pretending this is perfect. They were perfect. The premise one, the government is completely evil. Premise two, anyone who supports it is complicit. Conclusion, all opposition must be eliminated. Then the guiding virtue, exercise respect, and other exercises here. Compare different news reports on the same event to identify bias, because you can find a different and alternative reports which would shatter these convictions, and or use a headline to summarize the propaganda techniques. Using a single sentence also worked well. This works well also with younger kids. Step 4, understanding and challenging extremist rhetoric, because it's not enough to detect it, but also try to understand it and challenge it. Looking into authoritarian rhetoric and manipulation tactics. We're using sometimes ideas from important thinkers like Hannah Arendt and others, just very basic elements to identify this type of rhetoric. And the two metacognition thinking moves mostly used were spotting and comparing. And the study was chosen as being Russia's anti-LGBT plus narrative, which was from the Russian propaganda. LGBT plus rights are Western attempt to corrupt traditional values. One sentence subjected to analysis. So the fallacy jumping on the bandwagon, that was kind of chosen, and it worked fine, conforming to a popular authoritarian belief without independent critical assessment. And because a lot of people were doing that, so let's do it. Let's follow them. So the premises you can see here, and the conclusion being that LGBT plus rights must be opposed, and the guiding virtue, authenticity, maintaining personal integrity and independent judgment. Exercises also. So like I said, every step is supposed to last for 3 sessions. So this was cover the whole school year, 3 sessions per step. So then that gives us a little bit of first meeting is to clarify the basic concept. Then the second 2 is to exercise, to do the LBT syllogism and apply the guiding virtue, and in the end to finish with exercises. So step 5.
Just to keep our time in mind, I just wanted to let you know you had like just like 2 or 3 more minutes for the presentation.
Okay, yes, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So then I'll just go quickly through the others without detailing. In the other the 6th step, looking at the blind conjecture and the syllogism. Then in 6th step is emotional regulation, resisting manipulation, and the fallacy dutiful warring here, with the guiding virtue being prudence, or also choose moral creativity to find solutions to problems. rather than resorting to fear-driven narratives. Then step 7, practicing in intellectual flexibility to challenge their own assumptions and to use yielding and ordering as thinking moves and applying them to LBT analysis using constipation with temperance as guiding virtue. With this political polarization, which is now used so much, but it's very old. If you're not with us, you're against us. And that polarizes even students within the classroom, not only what happens on the political stage. And then step 8, building resistance to authoritarianism, using manipulation as a fallacy, with the crackdown on Hungarian free press as an example. And what is the consequences of that? And step 9, ethical inquiry and moral decision making. With the fallacy, the world revolves around me thinking. This was about Holocaust distortion. I have a class dedicated to the Holocaust, so it was not very difficult for me to bring elements from there and connect them with historical revisionism, because they are very, very deeply connected. Holocaust was exaggerated and our country had no role. This is very much trumpeted in many countries, including Poland. And that was also useful as showing how this kind of thinking works, building it into syllogism, and then looking at the empathy as guiding virtue. And finally, the civic responsibility and democratic resilience, which should somehow be built sooner rather than later, with the oversimplifying reality as a fallacy, with public disinformation campaigns. This is a lot in Romania. Now all elections are rigged, so voting is pointless. So let's not go to vote, because anyhow they're all rigged. And so working on the syllogism and using objectivity as a guiding virtue, and that is probably what I've been doing recently in this front. And thank you. Sorry for exceeding the time.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you so much for your presentation. We can now open to the Q&A. If you have a question, if you can just unmute your mic.
And I'm going to close this presentation now.
I'm just wondering how the students responded to this. I mean, what was their sense? Did they feel like they had learned something? Did they change their attitude, or what was?
Very much so. Very much so, because there was so much confusion, and there were always these disputes within the groups, and people going out to ask for permission if they could leave to the protest, to be out in the outside in the square, or a lot of them were willing to apply this. And I tried, of course, it was adapted to mathematics or sciences, slightly different, because examples have to be different. And like I said, I didn't have the time to do 3 sessions for each. And they were also people who were going to vote. And so the idea of going to schools to under 18 is just an idea. I haven't had time yet to, but I try to work with these students as a pilot type of thing, this scheme of intervention. It might be still too complex for younger kids. I realize, and I'm aware of that. But I think it can be kind of downgraded in terms of terminology, examples. Go to simple examples from their own lives, not from Hitler's speeches or Putin or that. But this is what worked with students who were like over 19, over 20, some of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you actually saw, were there ones that came in with these beliefs that they
Yes.
actually bought into and they subscribed, and then they left with different perspectives.
Yeah, and with doubts, or at least with doubts, because everyone wanted to show that they are logical, that they think rationally, and that what they believe is can be founded on rational thinking, and some of
Mhm.
them conceded. Not all of them, of course. A lot of people don't concede easily. But I was going outside. They were standing, smoking outside, and then continued to argue outside very loudly.
Ah,
Uh, so that was at least something um, or something I troubled them with.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You stirred them up.
Yeah, so it did work in okay. I thought it was a bit hasty because there was no time, and the classes were actually supposed to be ethics classes. So I tried to integrate this into ethics classes, but at least there was uh, there was positive response. They were very interested in debating these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I,
That's,
I would do, I mean, I would be very happy to receive as many improvement suggestions as possible, because um, I don't even know. We will be starting soon, next week, uh, implementing them into the much younger kids groups, and that is going to be very different.
did you share the syllogisms with them, or how did you?
Yes, yeah, the syllogisms were more or
Mhm.
less worked, yeah, in groups together, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if the syllogisms would be uh, transferable to the younger groups in quite the form that they were expressed for the older groups.
No, no. No.
So what do you think might be an alternative for that?
Well, they have to be embedded and hidden into stories.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, little stories, little examples of if this is this, and then does this actually follow from this, or no, really? So there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So effectively the syllogisms could be translated into stories
Yeah,
and
fragments of stories.
fragments.
Usually,
Yeah.
yeah, working with young kids is always you always have a stimulus story, or I
Mhm.
do. Some people use images or a fragment from a video, but
Mhm.
um, stories work best because the imagination is kind of roams freely when you don't confine them to yet the same screen they are so used to
Uh-huh.
stare at for so long.
And I wonder if the as a community of inquiry, the questions would be open-ended and let them discover for themselves, what the answer is once they start seeing clearly the
Yeah, so
distinctions. Yeah.
well, usually introducing philosophy or uh, the philosophical way of thinking or answering question would be like philosophy would never give you answers, would give you more questions. So
Hmm.
never give you final answers to anything,
Hmm.
because that's one of the first things even students ask. Okay, so here we are now. Let's go for the definite answers or to our questions, and the AI. we need to tell them always that, yeah, you'll be disappointed, but there will be not a single one which is definite and perfect answer. We still have to be in search for the perfect question.
And you find a truth, not the truth, not the ultimate truth, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm counting on you. And
thank you so
the
much,
others
Florin,
to
because
go,
I think we really
going
need
to
this
schools.
initiative. Yes, you can count on me. I need to do that again. I miss doing P4C. But actually,
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, because you spoke about younger children, but there was this initiative, for example, from the judge, from Christy Danilets, who wrote a sort of booklet for teenagers, which he spread it in schools, because he was trying also to raise awareness upon, people rights, pupils' rights, and stuff like that, just to share a sort of brief introduction into.
Yeah, I read about it
activity, I think.
on the internet only, but I haven't had the time
Actually,
to look through it.
I was wondering if you would be interesting, because I'm close to those folks from the local organization that is Inițiativa Timișoara, and they will be organizing an event in March where a lot of people are coming, and I was wondering if maybe you or maybe Mihai Murariu would come and talk. It's because it's
Yes, of
exactly
course.
on this topic.
Yeah.
I'll share you the
I'll be-
details, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's not go into so much particularity.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Here,
Yeah, but
because
we are living in Romania, so we are concerned about it. So, and I think everything is connected, right? Because with President Trump being elected, now all the world is like at risk, let's say. So,
yes,
and especially we here are so small and so close to Russia. So, well, sorry.
Yes. So any.
I just have a question for you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, maybe just to frame the question, I really like to see you using the additional metacognitive element in that, because some of the work that I've seen on sort of ideological obsession is that sort of counter narratives aren't really that effective, where you just go directly against the belief by giving an opposing belief. So I like the metacognitive element. What I wanted to ask you, would you see the guiding virtues as a form of metacognition? And if somebody adopts a guiding virtue, sort of metacognition in the sense of metacognitive therapy, where it's not trying to negate the rational belief, but trying to understand the function that belief has, sort of understanding that anxiety is a useless action, not so much the content of anxiety. Would you equate the practice of guiding virtues with a form of metacognition as sort of defined by Adrian Walls and those guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we just started doing that, bringing them together. It even felt like a better way to reach out to them, and you use this as an exercise, as a self monitoring exercise, even in younger kids. Seem to be much more effective than what you were describing, like counter narratives, or even when the particular young adolescent would be very stubborn about holding a belief against the whole group or most of the group, working through metacognition and encouraging them to actually watch themselves, how they think, and do these moves, seems to work much better than countering them or cornering them by using this, because using other even if we talked about this what was what they call the big lie strategies, when the leaders actually are testing the loyalty of the group, and try to illustrate this as much as we could. This loyalty signaling, when a leader makes followers public, make them follow publicly affirm ridiculous claims, testing actually their loyalty and submission. The more absurd the statement, the more committed the follower appears to be accepting it. Showing these examples, or cognitive dissonance as a manipulative tool, when people are made to affirm something they initially find absurd, and they often adjust their beliefs to align with the statement to avoid internal conflict and so on. So this put in the context of metacognition work much better than just trying to show them, throw in their face the falsity of their beliefs, because they immediately put up resistance. They would resist, and they would just block themselves to dialogue, and that is when you lose the partner in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anything that you, from your experience or from anyone's experience, would you think it would work to be added here, it would be much appreciated, because we are not only thinking now doing academic and just amusement of thinking here, but there are serious issues going on.
Yeah. Maybe just a comment on that. Thank you. I appreciate the answer. There's the question of, why do people believe irrational beliefs? And the way that I've looked at it, and some people is they believe it exactly because it is irrational. That's the appeal. And if one looks at the psychological function of irrational beliefs, it's very often psychoactive. Me and Elliot once spoke to a guy from the United Arab Nations, where they work with radicalism. And he, like myself, has sort of viewed ideological obsession as a form of addiction, because the belief in the ideology is psychoactive. So that's why I like the metacognitive element, because if one looks at what is the psychological function of the rational belief, and very often there's fantasy involved, fantasy of utopia, or fantasy of this, and it's exactly that fantasy that's psychoactive. Ideology is very psychoactive. Any belief system can be, but it's not so much psychoactive when it's rational, then it's quite dull. It's like broccoli. But when it's very irrational, then it creates more fantasy. That's why, anyway, that's why I like the metacognitive element. And maybe just to add, I sort of see that guiding virtue as a type of metacognition that's like one level up from typical metacognition. It's sort of metacognition and a mode of being, compared to the metacognition of sort of Adrian Wells and those guys. So anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think what Guy was talking about, the ideologies, are what keeps these beliefs going, and with LBT, the guiding virtues can be used as to replace the ideology. For as long as they have the ideology that they subscribe to, they're likely to be in denial. No matter what you say, they're not going. It's a mindset. So any evidence.
Yeah.
And that's why just trying to refute what they're saying would blow up. Because the ideological commitment is there, and this fits in with it, and so helping them to change their ideology can help to align the beliefs, the other beliefs that they have in their system. And the metacognitive approach is also the exploration of ideologies too, within metacognition. And so hopefully to to change their ideological commitments. It's a tough sell, but it would need to be, without ideological change, there's no, but those ideologies are, immersed in irrational thinking. They're absolutistic. They're, uh,
That's
involved.
the problem, I guess, right? Because it seems they cannot be convinced really with arguments. So they're somehow driven by fear.
Yeah, well, that's why we had this emotional regulation component into it. And regarding ideology, I used heavily examples um, from the past, from the tragic, the catastrophes of the past, and this interpretation that the biggest catastrophes in human history, like the Holocaust, were. I'm using the intentionalist ideological, not the functionalist or the like they call it, the functionalist systemic explanation of it, but the intentionalist and the importance of ideology in behind the human actions, even if it's a few steps back, and it doesn't have to be immediate, but once examples and their articulation into inferences and syllogisms show their logicality, then a lot of people actually start thinking about it. Miracles cannot be done, I'm sure, but and there are people who are in this trap, for sure. People who cannot be changed. They refuse that. They have different allegiances or different level of allegiance, which is usually what it was just saying here. They don't want to step out of that, and the more you try to convince them, or the more you try to discuss, the more they resist. But not everyone, and especially the younger people are they're freer than the adults. They
But
can
what
be more.
if I may say something, what I noticed during last year, and I was really, really very nice surprised
I
that,
apologize for
sorry, yeah,
interrupting. We are just a few minutes over time, and just be mindful of our next presenter. We have to move on to her presentation, but thank you for the love.